Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 28th of December 2022 are listed on your screen and the time stamping along with the notes in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 1st and talks about the ongoing delimitation exercise in the state of Assam. Election Commission under the Delimitation Act has begun the delimitation exercise in the state of Assam for the upcoming elections. This delimitation exercise is going to provide the provision of seats and their exact geographical locations in the Assembly and the Lok Sabha elections from the state. Now, when we talk about the relevance of delimitation exercise, it is important for your prelim examination where election related and delimited related questions could be put up. As far as mains examination is concerned, so it is important for your general studies paper 2 under the constitutional provision. Now the question arises that why we need delimitation in Assam. But previously, there was a delimitation exercise which was conducted in the state of Assam in the year 1976 on the basis of 1971 census. Because in order to complete the delimitation exercise, the population data from census is required. So whenever there is a completion of delimitation exercise, it is based on the population data available to the government. And as of now, the 2011 is the benchmark which is available for the government. But because the 2001 census was remained as the benchmark given by the parliament, it is going to be the same till 2026. So whatever delimitation exercise is going on in India is based on 2001 census. Before 2001, it was 1971. There is a provision of freezing the census for the delimitation exercise because every census, every 10 years, it is not feasible to change the delimitation. So for Assam, it was in 1976. After that, it was not revised in 2001. Why? Because there were security issues with respect to left-wing extremism and the separatist activities in the state of Assam, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur. It was supposed to be conducted in 2008, but because of the security issues, it was delayed. So now in 2023, it is going to be conducted under the request made by the Law Ministry to the Delimitation Commission. Now, when we talk about the basic provisions of the Constitution, it is important for the student to go through Article 170. Article 170 has given two important clauses, 170 Clause 2 and 170 Clause 3. The clause 2 talks about that for the election purpose, every state should be divided into territorial constituencies. Constituencies is that particular geographical area and a political unit that is being identified for the particular voters to vote for a single candidate. For example, let's say this is a particular area and here there is a population of 1 crore people. Now 1 crore people are not going to vote for one person. Let's say there are 5 seats for these 1 crore people. Now these 5 seats from this particular state should be divided in such a position that every seat should have equal population representation. So let's say every seat is getting 20 lakh people in its hand to vote for their particular candidate. So each 20 lakh population is going to vote for one seat, and that's how we are going to get 5 candidates for 5 seats. And these 5 seats will determine the position in Lok Sabha or the state assembly. So geographical distribution, as you can see on the screen, is known as constituency. And this constituency is revised regularly based on the census data. So Article 170 says that for the election purpose, state can be divided into such territories. The manner which this should be represented is that the ratio of population of each constituency and the number of seats allotted should be same. Now if you go through the example, here for one seat we have 20 lakh people. For the other seat also we have 20 lakh people, and the same is true with the n number of other seats. So this ratio 1/20 is going to be the same throughout the state. Now there might be a chance that one area, let's say this particular area is larger than the other area, or let's say this area. So you might see in the map of election commission that there are certain constituencies which are very small. For example, constituencies in Delhi are very small with respect to Lok Sabha, while in Jaisalmer it is very large, and the same is true with the constituency of Kutch. So the ratio of population to the seats should be equal across the state. Now, what is population according to this article? It is based on the preceding census and not the coming census. Then comes the article 173, which says that number of seats in the legislative assembly shall be readjusted. See, the first clause does not talk about delimitation commission. It only talks about how constituencies should be defined. The second talks about the delimitation commission. And under this, an authority should be created by the parliament to determine the number of seats in the assembly and how they should be readjusted. Similarly, there is article 82, which provides for the creation of such commission through the parliamentary law. But how this readjustment is to be made is given in article 170. Now, one thing is important. Until there is a relevant figure in the first census taken after 2000 have been published, it shall not be necessary to readjust a total number of seats. And that is the reason why government has fixed the previous census, the current delimitation exercise on 2001 census. It is also important that whenever there is a delimitation exercise, the reserved seat for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes should also be readjusted based on the seat allocated. So these are also part of the readjustment made under Article 330 and 332 based on the previous census. When we talk about that how this delimitation exercise is conducted, so the first step is that parliamentary under Article 82 enact the Delimitation Act. Followed by this comes that the union government create such commission. This commission then examines the population data, existing constituencies and the number of seats that should be analyzed. After that, it provides a report, and this is a draft report, and this is published in the Gazette of India for public notification. After that, recommendations to the government is being provided. The same delimitation commission also conducts meeting with the different stakeholders. After getting the feedback from different stakeholders, the delimitation commission then provided the necessary changes in the reports if they have to make such. After the entire exercise, it is once notified by the president, the commission order becomes finalized. So it's a 9-step functioning or the process of how delimitation commission functions. Now we are going to look into the important provisions with respect to the delimitation commission and what are the basic issues faced by the delimitation commission. Now we come to the revision of what delimitation commission is. We have already done this previously also, but so in that case we will take it in brief. Delimitation means the act of redrawing the boundaries of Lok Sabha or the state assembly that we have discussed, which should represent the equal population for the each and every seat. This delimitation exercise is given under Article 82 of the Indian Constitution that empowers the Parliament to legislate a separate delimitation act from time to time for this exercise. For your information, Delimitation Commission is created under the Delimitation Act. It is not mentioned directly in the Constitution of India. So you have to have a clear idea on that. Under the Constitutional Amendment 84 and 87, there was a separate Delimitation Act which was created in 2002. Similarly, it was created 3 times in the past also. But as we have said, most of the time the delimitation exercise is based on the population as an important parameter. And that is the reason why the populous states are getting benefit and the less population states are getting disadvantage on this commission's report. Delimitation Commission, which is created under this act, fixes the limit or the boundaries of the territorial constituency. That is, outside this constituency, people will not be able to vote for that constituency's candidate. It is a single exercise for the entire nation. Separate Delimitation Commission for specific state is created only under certain conditions. For instance, Some of the states in northeast India, because of the security concerns, were not able to conduct the delimitation exercise in 2002. So it was created later on. Another issue arises with respect to delimitation is that it cannot be called in question in any court of law. Its copies are although laid down in the houses of people and the state assembly, but they are not allowed to bring any modification. Secondly, anything done by the Delimitation Commission is not subjected to the alteration. Although before the implementation of the report, n number of changes can be made. But that is subjected to the members of the commission and not the outsider body. So now we come to the concern. The first one is the exercise is restricted by the constitution because since 2002, the demographic dividend of India has changed considerably. And the next exercise, which is going to be conducted 4 years down the line, that is 2022, will have a gap of 24 years that is enough to bring a drastic change in the population parameter. So this freezing of the seat is not a good idea. Then, frozen of the seat is not only limited to the general category but also to the ST-SC population, which remains outside the ambit of good welfare in the country. Then, we have seen that despite the abrogation of Article 370 and the sub judice of the material, delimitation exercise was conducted in these two union territories without court's order. There is no legislative representation in the commission. As we have seen, there is one judicial member and two members from the election commission. And last, commission is not at all accountable to any authority in India. So whatever they say is taken for granted, which also opens for high level of discretion, misuse of power, and even the political patronage by these members. This article of the Hindu newspaper is part of editorial and was published on page 6. The article says that according to the International Organization of Migration, under the World Migration Report 2022, there were around 281 million international migrants. This also includes the labor migrants, which were 2/3 of the total, which is around 90 million people or 9 crore people. Now, when we talk about India, for instance, India is one of the largest out migrant or has the largest outbound migration from the country. And India, along with other South Asian countries, contribute 40% of the total migrant labor. Not only that, the South Asia and Gulf Migratory Corridor is world's largest in terms of migration of labor. Now the point is why people are migrating, why labor are going out of India. These are the following factors, and it is also important from your NCERT perspective as well as your GS paper 1 perspective. This topic is also important for your GS paper 2 under international relations and the situation of diaspora and factors affecting it. As labor is the largest section of India's diaspora living outside and is also the largest source of inbound remittances, India should have this position to call for reforms in the Indian workers who are working outside. Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Labour has brought various reforms to help these workers who are working outside. But despite that, they are facing many issues that cannot be resolved just by the legislative procedure. It has been observed that the countries where these laborers are residing right now are also exploiting them through private or public means. Even the legislative initiatives of those countries are not in favor to the welfare of these countries. When we talk about the factors affecting the migration, the first one is the geographical location. The geographical location simply means that a person would like to stay in that geography where the conditions are favorable for the habitation. Residing in an extreme desert situation or residing in the Siberia-like cold environment is not feasible for a worker. Residing in a good locality, residing in a clean urban environment, or even in the rural habitation is the demand of the hour. So people who are residing in the slum area would like to move to the clean areas. So if Indian laborers who are living in the poor states of India find it easy to move to the Gulf countries for better habitation, for better geographical locations, they do not miss the opportunity. The second one is the economic condition. When there's a large difference between what a person has in his homeland and what he can get in the foreign land, this difference defines what is the ideal number of immigrants shifting from one position to the other. So when a person shifts from India to, let's say, Dubai, or a person shifting to Saudi Arabia is going there to earn more money so that they can survive on their own and can also remit their saving back to the sustainability of their family back home. And that is one of the reasons that India is the largest remittance receiver in the world, even surpassing China. The third issue is the security status. The countries which are under wars, the countries which are under civil war and the threat of terrorism have seen the outbound migration to a larger extent. And this is not only true with respect to West Asia, this has also been seen in the case of South Asia. So people from Bangladesh have been visiting to India since 1971 war. Not only that, people from Myanmar has also been shifting to India to find better secure places. The issue of Rohingya is one such example. The fourth one is the travel time. People want to migrate to those positions where they can go to work and back home in a least amount of time. So people who are residing in the Western countries find it convenient to commute to these nations on the daily manner. And the last one is the wage rate differential. India is a country where wage rate is extremely low, especially for the unorganized and informal sector. So, a laborer would try to move to other position or other nations where they can get more for the same amount of skill. So, if a person is working as a laborer in the construction sector, is going to earn more money in Dubai than what he can earn in Delhi. Now, because of the COVID impact, according to the data published by the Kerala government, which is also one of the largest outbound migrant state in India, says that 1.5 million, that is 15 lakh workers lost their job in the Middle East countries because of the COVID impact. And this is a huge number given what India is sending outside. The number of problems that are faced by the labor migrants in these countries are as follows. The first is that they are struggling with the low wages paid by these companies. So when an Indian works in a Dubai firm, they are going to get lower wages than what a Dubai national is going to work over there. And not only that, the employers have been seen violating the norms, have been seen becoming biased towards some race and even religion. Physical and sexual exploitation without the safety and the security. So many females workers who have been working in the Middle East countries have been reported to go through the physical and the sexual exploitation by their employers. And this shows the lack of safety and security for Indians out there. There is present of more specifically in the unorganized sector. So the kind of exploitation that we often see of Indians in the other countries is mostly in the unorganized sector. There is non-payment of wages, sometimes even delays, long working hours, ill treatment and denial of leave to the workers, cheating by the recruiting agents, which are often Indians themselves, non-fulfillment of contractual obligations, poor working and living conditions, death and disability compensation is not being paid, and even if they have some dead bodies of their relatives, it is not easy for them to bring back home India. And the top of all is the kafala system, which simply proves that there is a sponsorship where the relationship between the employers and migrants are being regulated. So a migrant worker cannot leave that particular country until unless it is being authorized by a particular employer. So this shows the form of modern day bonded labor, and this should be removed as far as possible. There also comes the absence of profession wise data. So India does not know that how many Indian nurses are working in the Middle East. We don't know that how many teachers are working in Africa. We don't know that how many students are actually working I'm not talking about those students who are only going there for education, but also who are working in a part-time manner. So we don't have data for those people as of now. And the last but not the least is that there is no amendment that was brought to the Immigration Act of 1983 despite the changing condition that India has faced in the past 3 decades. But recently, government has brought the Emigration Bill 2021 that we are going to go through shortly. But before that, these are the two important schemes that are rolled out by the government for the outbound migrant laborers. The first one is Pravasi Bharatiya Bima Yojana, which provides the insurance cover to these laborers up to 10 lakh rupees in case of death or accident. Then there is the Indian Community Welfare Fund under the ministry, where services such as boarding or lodging for the distressed workers, emergency medical care are being provided whenever there is a need. But all these seems to be the social service that government is providing. What about the exploitation of these laborers? What about those middlemen that are luring these laborers for hefty amount and cheating on them? What about the laws in these countries which are exploitative in nature? What government has done on that regard? And what about the basic authority or a single point of authority that can look into the welfare of these people? To answer all these questions, government brought the Emigration Bill 2021, in which they provided the entire framework, the entire institutional framework for the protection and the promotion of welfare of immigrants. There should be a comprehensive immigration management institute regulatory mechanism governing overseas employment. And for that matter, government is planning to create a Central Immigration Management Authority, CEMA. This authority is going to work under MEA. This authority will regulate and provide all necessary help to the laborers who are facing any sort of problems in the other countries. Government is also looking to provide a Bureau of Immigration Policy and the planning that will go for research and development in this field, will provide basic data set and necessary help to the people. They are also looking to crack down on workers who migrate through the unregistered brokers. So if a labor is going outside India from the unregistered broker, government is not looking for their welfare because they are following the unorganized and cheated way to go into the other countries, and it is most likely that they are going to end up in the wrong direction. They are going to end up in the illegal activities. And the last one is that government is looking to maintain the registration of human resource agencies, validity and renewal, and the cancellation of the certificate. So if all these things are being provided, the one thing that we are going to get is that there will be formalization of emigration in India. Once government know that what person is going from India for a particular work, where that person is working, what agreement or contract he is working on, what salary that person is getting, India will be in a good position to bargain for basic human rights of those laborers. Now it is in the hands of the Indian Parliament to pass this bill as soon as possible. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 14, that is business page, and there is some good news for the entire economy. The balance sheets of Indian banks have seen the double-digit growth in the financial year 2022, which simply means that the credit outbound from these banks have increased drastically, which is 7 years after the gap. And this is also a good sign because this shows that the non-performing asset of the bank is falling down, and also proves that there is a confidence in the banking sector in the economy, which is rising as of now. So the credit growth has hit a 10-year high, but there is a concern. When there is an increase in the credit, there should also be equivalent or similar increase in the deposits with the bank. Now, if deposits are not increasing, what will happen? In order to give loans, a bank have to borrow. For that matter, bank can borrow for the securities in the market. They can borrow from the equities that they are giving in the share market, or they can take the external commercial borrowings from the other banks. The concern is that if deposit is not rising, why? After the COVID-19 crisis, people have started utilizing money for more expenditure. Although saving has increased, but this saving has increased in the informal sector. People have started keeping more liquid asset with them rather than keeping it in the banking sector. The precautionary reasons have increased. People are now scared to spend more concerning the COVID like situation in the future. So, all these reasons have culminated into the falling deposit, but the demand has increased after the COVID, so the credit disbursement of the banks have also increased. So, before going into the discussion, please keep this in mind that UPSC in the prelim examination can easily put up question with respect to the cause and effect relations, which actually means that if some X factor has increased, what will happen to the Y factor? For example, if prices has increased, what will happen to the demand? If rate of interest has increased, what will happen to the overall inflation in the economy? If currency is depreciating, what will happen to the imports? So cause and effect relation is important for your prelim examination. Now, if bank balance sheet is improving, what is the overall impact on the economy is going to be today's discussion. But before venturing into the discussion, we should discuss what is the balance sheet all about. So this is the basic asset liability relation of a bank, a commercial bank in India. Liability is something that a bank owe to somebody else. This is something that they have taken from others. So what is a liability to a person? That let's say he or she has borrowed some 100 rupee from his friend. So that is a liability. But if that person has 100 rupee of his own, that is something which they own. So owe and own is the basic difference between asset and liability. Under the liability section, the first is a deposit. Why deposits are liability to a bank? Because these deposits belong to the citizens like you and me. So whatever money I am parking in a bank is my deposit. This includes demand deposit, saving deposit or fixed deposit or the term deposit. So this is not bank's money. This is somebody else's money. Hence it is a liability. And then comes the borrowing. So whatever borrowing a bank is making from other banks, national institutions, international authorities and others is going to be the liability. When it comes to the asset, what a bank owns, so it is cash balances with RBI because this is the cash of a bank. Let's say this is the cash from State Bank of India which is lying with the Reserve Bank of India. The second one is the balances with the banks and money at call and short notices. So all these balances that SBI is going to keep, let's say with Punjab National Bank, is also their asset. Then comes the investment because bank is making the investment from their pocket. So let's say they have invested in the government and the other securities which they have. The loan a bank is giving and the fixed asset, let's say a branch office or the furniture with the bank. All these are the assets of the bank. So I'll give you the example of the second last one, that is loan and advances. Now the article is saying that loan and advances through the credit disbursement has been the 10-year high in the Indian banking system. But on the left side, the liabilities had not increased drastically. And that is the reason why there is a high difference in deposit and credit ratio. Now, the report that was highlighted in the article says that the larger share of the credit disbursement comes from the public sector bank. I'll give you one example. Recently, there's an industrialist with the name Adani. Now, he was in news for getting almost over a lakh crore rupees of loan. Now, from where he has taken the loan? Most of the loan comes from the public sector bank, that is government owned banks. And these banks are sharing almost 2/3 of the total disbursement in the bank. Then comes the liability. So the housing finance savings have declined to the 5-year low because of the COVID crisis. People are not saving in an organized banking manner. They are saving in a liquid manner in their household. Now, because of the lower savings by the household, the deposits have already degraded. Why? Because people are taking the precautionary tendencies. They are more cautious before going for the savings in the bank. Deposit are falling. On the other hand, the credit is rising. The assets with the bank is 10-year high. Now, why this is the case? Let's go back to the balance sheet. When we were talking about the asset, this is something that we talked about in a larger extent. Now, when loan and advance are increasing, don't you think that yes, assets are also increasing? Hence, the assets of the bank are at 10-year high. But the concern is that the incremental credit to deposit ratio has reached a 4-year high. So let's say a bank is giving a credit loan of 100 rupee and the deposit is only 20. And this is the case in 2022. Now 5 years back, let's say in 2017, the case was different. Here, the deposit was low, let's say 10. But the loan disbursement was also small, let's say 30. So here it was 3 times, here it is 5 times. So as the credit to deposit ratio has increased, it is a good sign but not a great sign. Now why it is not a great sign? Because there is a mismatch. We know that credit should be more than deposit, which is a good thing. But the credit that these banks are extending is a long-term loan. Please understand this. How long do you believe a home loan is going to last? Home loan is not for 1 year or 2 years. It is for 20 years. And there are short-term deposit. So how many years are you going to deposit money in a bank? Let's say 3 years or maybe 5 years. So you are depositing money for 3 to 5 years, but the bank is giving loan to 20 years. And this extension has led to the mismatch in terms of maturity of a certain liability. Every 5 years, 3 years, interest rate are going to be falling or increasing. That might impact that how loans given by the bank are going to be there in the economy. During the previous financial year, the maturity mismatch has moderated, which is a good sign. So now the long-term loans and the short-term deposit is moderating, which is a good sign in the economy, and that was also highlighted in the report. So if you go with the basic discussion that we have done, as you can see, the deposits in the public sector banks and the borrowings of the public sector bank has been shown. So this entire graph shows the liability side of a bank. So from here, what we can easily deduce is that small finance banks are the one in the country that are borrowing from the market a lot. On the other hand, the deposits of public sector bank is extremely high, and this shows the trust of people in public sector banks because they are being owned by the government themselves. With this discussion in place, now we come to the end of today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.